All right, let's talk about something that drives every student crazy. You study for hours, you feel like you've got it down, and then poof, it's all gone by morning. We're gonna get into the science of why that happens, and way more importantly, what you can actually do to fix it.
Seriously, think about it. You pull an all-nighter, you feel like a genius, you go to bed feeling confident, then you wake up, and it's like your brain hit the reset button overnight. It's so frustrating, right? Well, here's the good news. Your brain isn't broken. Your study method probably is. For pretty much all of us, the go-to move is just rereading our notes over and over. Maybe break out the highlighters, make everything look colorful and important. It feels so productive, like you're literally forcing the information into your head. But the actual science, it tells a completely different story.
So let's dive into the psychology here. Why does a method that is so bad for long-term memory feel so right? The answer is all about a powerful trick your brain plays on you.
Okay, so when you reread something, the words and sentences become familiar. Your brain processes them way faster, and it feels easy. And that feeling of ease, your brain mistakes it for mastery. It's what's called the illusion of fluency. You're not actually recalling anything, you're just recognizing it. And that is a huge, critical difference.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. The researchers who really dug into this, Roediger and Karpicke, they nailed exactly why we fall into this trap. We get hooked on those quick, short-term benefits. That immediate feeling of, oh yeah, I know this, makes us predict we're gonna ace the test later, even when the exact opposite is true.
This brings up a really important question. If you can't trust your own gut feeling about whether you're learning something, what can you trust? Well, that's where the hard evidence comes in. We have to look at the data.
And that brings us to this landmark study from 2006 that basically set up a scientific showdown. It pitted these different study methods against each other head-to-head. Let's see how they did it. So the researchers created two teams. Over on one side, you had Team Reread. Their job was simple: read a passage and then read it again, just a passive review. Then you had Team Test. They read the same passage, but only once. Then they had to put it away and just write down everything they could possibly remember. That's a strategy called active retrieval.
All right, so both groups eventually took a final test on the material. But here's where it gets really interesting. The results were absolutely not what you'd expect. In fact, there's a killer twist. First, let's look at what happened just 5 minutes after they studied. And this is brilliant because it shows you exactly why we get fooled. Team Reread, the passive group, actually did better. They remembered 81% of the info, while Team Test only got 75%. If the experiment ended right here, you'd think, see, rereading works. But, and this is a huge but, look what happens when they test them again 1 week later. The tables completely flip. Team Reread's memory absolutely tanked, dropping all the way to 42%. And Team Test, they held strong, retaining 56%. That short-term boost from rereading completely evaporated, and the true long-term learning from testing became obvious. And if you think that's crazy, this is my favorite part of the whole thing. The researchers asked the students to predict how well they do. The rereading group was way more confident, but as we know, they did the worst. The testing group felt less confident, but they absolutely smoked the final test. That is the illusion of learning, perfectly captured in one table. So, what's the big takeaway here? It's that testing isn't just about getting a grade. It's actually one of the most powerful learning tools we have, period. So let's talk about why it's so effective. This whole phenomenon has a name. It's called the testing effect. And here's the core idea. Every time you force your brain to pull a piece of information out of your memory, you're not just checking if it's there. The act of pulling it out actually strengthens that memory, like forging it in steel, making it way easier to find next time. Honestly, the best way to think about this is like a workout. Passively rereading your notes, that's like watching a workout video on YouTube. Sure, you understand the moves, it looks familiar, but you're not building any muscle. Active retrieval, testing yourself, that's like getting on the floor and actually doing the push-ups. It's harder, it's a struggle, but that's where the real strength comes from. So if we dig a little deeper, retrieval works for a few key reasons. First, that struggle is what scientists call a desirable difficulty. It forces your brain to work harder and process things more deeply. It also builds more connections to that memory, kind of like building more roads to the same city. And maybe most importantly, every time you retrieve something, you're sending a loud, clear signal to your brain, hey,
This stuff is important. Save it.
Okay, so that's the science. It's fascinating, right? But now for the really important part. How do we actually take this and use it to study smarter, starting right now?
The entire strategy, the whole secret, can be boiled down to this one simple shift in thinking. We're obsessed with getting information in. The real key to making memory stick is to practice pulling that information out.
So here is a super simple 3-step workout you can do for any subject. Step 1, learn the material. Then, and this is key, cover it up. Close the book, hide the notes. Step 2, retrieve. Force yourself to remember. Say it out loud, write it down, whatever it takes. And step 3, check. Look at the material again and see what you got right and what you missed. That's what you study next.
And here are a couple of super practical swaps. Instead of just highlighting stuff, try writing questions about the key points in the margins. Later, quiz yourself with those questions. And with flashcards, stop doing it the easy way. Always practice in the direction that forces your brain to produce the answer. It's harder, for sure, but that's why it works so much better. Let's just end on this quote from the study, because it really says it all. The very method that made students feel the most confident was the one that made them perform the worst. It is a powerful, powerful reminder that when it comes to learning, our feelings can't always be trusted. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. Now that you know the real science of learning, what's the first passive study habit, the highlighting, the rereading, that you're going to trade in for a real brain workout? Thanks for tuning in.